All right, friends, we're going to get after it. Today we're going to talk about sales and sponsorship. So, what is selling? Well, selling, as the textbook defines, is just the process of moving goods and services from the hands of those who actually produce that good or product or service into those who actually desire that and will benefit from it. So, why is this important? Well, sales traditionally accounts for a vast majority of the revenues that sports sponsorships are able to generate. Historically speaking, and we'll see very shortly as an example, that butts and seats in terms of ticket sales or other ancillary aspects really are the lifeblood of sports organizations. That's what we often hear, lifeblood. And with regardless of what position you actually find yourself in within the sport industry or some sort of related field, there is some level of sales. And let's face it, at the end of the day, we are all selling ourselves. We are salespeople, and the good or product that we have is our body of work and what we can do for an organization. So sales is incredibly important because we are selling things on a daily basis. We're selling our skills, we're selling our background, we're selling the product that we for the company we work for, in a litany of things. And sales is also important from a sport management perspective. Just as an example, the recent revenue generation shows from the University of Minnesota that their second greatest revenue stream was tickets, only behind what it makes from the NCAA and the Big Ten from different sorts of payouts. So it's very important that we understand what sales is. And from a career perspective, understanding sales and having experience in sales is becoming increasingly attractive for those wanting to become general managers, athletic directors, vice presidents, or C-level people, chief operating officers, chief executives of sports organizations, because sales really is the foundation of sport business. If you go and want to work in professional sports, most often the open positions, if you go to teamworkonline.com or any other sorts of search engine focused on sales in the sports field, you'll see a litany of organizations are looking for people to sell tickets or some aspect of sales. So there's really more positions than anything else out there for sales. And because the foundational aspects of sales is important, and we are a money revenue generating industry, having experience in sales and understanding sales is going to help give you an advantage for a number of reasons. And then, historically speaking, it's good for us because people who are good at sales or people who are able to engage in selling and have that disposition and track record can maximize their income. So people can make more money through sales. And because of the pressure, the pressure laden nature of sales, it helps you to actually have experience with generating a track record of increasing revenues. One thing to note also, when I worked for the Arizona Coyotes, even though I was coming in with a legal background, I was able to help out with an organization that was just getting started called the Lake Erie Monsters. Actually, I'm sorry, this was with the Cavaliers. When I started with the Cleveland Cavaliers, I had the opportunity to help out with the Lake Erie Monsters, and even though I had a legal background, my experience was helping on a variety of levels. And one of those levels was actually sales, pitching new sponsors and helping with group sales. And so I made my phone calls as well. So sales, even though I was going to be a lawyer for the organization, it still permeated what I was doing. But why would some people not want to work in sales? Why would some people find this to be unattractive? Well, there's some sort of negative connotations, and the textbook talks about it, about the historical nature of sales, that people are sort of hucksters or snake oil salesmen. and there's these negative connotations about just hustling. So sort of that connotation that comes with sales, it can be something that turns a person off. In addition, sales is high pressured, and you're trying to get someone to do something that they may not be initially interested in. So you're going to have to take some convincing, and oftentimes the first, second, and third time that you pitch someone something or say something to someone, they might not actually be paying attention to you, or they might not be. It might not get through to them. So people get discouraged with sales because they're not successful right off the bat. So that also turns people off. And then finally, people might lack knowledge about how sales works. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the fundamentals of sales. And without knowing the fundamentals of sales and not understanding that it takes several times before your pitch or your efforts might begin to pay off, this creates some resistance or apprehension for people wanting to work in sales, and leading to the negative connotations and some of the stereotypes that we see with used car dealerships or people preying on other individuals. So that can make it a bit less than desirable for people wanting to enter sales. But again, sales, having a fundamental understanding and background in sales, can only help you as someone who's interested in sport management. So let's say that you are interested in giving sales a try. Well, what exactly are you selling to the public? What's the name of the variety of items that you're seeking to sell? Well, anyone know? Right, inventory. So inventory is sort of the variety, the bundle of goods and services that an organization is selling to the public. It could be hard physical, tangible items like souvenirs or beverage service or any sort of things of that nature, or it could be intangible things like experiences or going to watch a game and being a part of the in-group. And that fluctuates based on demand, the price, as well as the inventory. So in terms of questions, there are specific questions that people in sales are going to want to ask as they begin to understand how best to serve their client, which is their organization, and how to be successful. The first being, what do sport organizations have to sell? The second one, what methods or methodologies does someone in sales use to sell their good or product or service? And then finally, what does it take to be successful as a salesperson in sport? And we're going to go through these. So first one, what do sports organizations actually have to sell? What are their items in their inventory? Well, there's a real variety of items that organizations have. The majority, right off the bat, are tickets. And tickets can come in the form of different areas within the stadium. So they could be general inventory to the stadium. So it could be any of these seats within the Miller Park representation, but you could also have suites, luxury suites. These are big ticket items strategically placed throughout the stadium for good vantage points. And newer stadia that have been built over the last 40 years usually have greater opportunities for inventory for suites, and to try to maximize those revenues, because again, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars usually if they're quite good suites, and they're trying to attract corporate clientele as opposed to individuals. Individuals might be interested in individual seats, season tickets, etc. Club seats are kind of a hybrid between individual seats or just seats in the facility versus suites, because suites usually have all kinds of other benefits like food and beverage and comfortable seats and maybe a wait person. But club seats give you the ability to sit in a specific area that might be in a more traditional seat, but have access to a club where there's food and beverage and different services that are not offered to the rest of the ticket holding base and that are more exclusive. Also, group sales is another inventory where these are groups of tickets in a specific part of the stadium that an organization or a salesperson might try to target specific types of clients. These are group sales usually are sold by the group sales ticket people within an organization. So there's specific dedicated salespeople within an organization targeting groups, religious organizations, other businesses, civic groups, and these can you can also get creative by offering the amenities of the park to hold a meeting with at that facility before going to the game to kind of create a unique experience opportunity for those seeking that potentially will buy group sales tickets. There's also inventory for advertising, so signage throughout the ballpark or the facility. You could get as creative as you want to, assuming that the creativity is not barred by league rules. But if signage on the turnstiles, signage on the seats, signage throughout in the concessions or the bathrooms. So advertising is just where other companies pay for the right to put their message on that space. There could be special offers, so there could be things with giveaways or special nights. So if you see on the right-hand side here, there's certain benefits that different classes of ticket holders get by virtue of being a member of that class of ticket holder. You could also have merchandise and rights where you could buy certain shirts or wares. You could be selling to the public, and then sponsors. Again, this is sort of an integration of all sorts of inventory. It could be advertising, ticketing, merchandise, special activation offers through marketing, and then naming rights. You look down here for the Staples Center. That's where an organization is going to pay a large sum, usually for a period of years, to have their corporate information on that facility. And then you see next to that on the left, we see a sponsorship example with McDonald's working with the Chicago Bulls, and they've got some activation with signage and also having probably some sort of integrated giveaway with McDonald's products offered at Bulls games or Bulls affiliated events. So there's quite a litany of different types of inventory. However, what do we sell that isn't part of the inventory? That's the question. Well, I'm glad you asked. An organization or salespeople sell the organization to the public through public relations. And salespeople can sell a specific person that is part of the brand, or sell the history or tradition of the brand, or pride and popularity of the brand, or sell some sort of highlights of or attributes. So the text mentions that salespeople need to understand that your organization is not going to be competitive on the field all the time. Of course, there's examples where of that not being true. The San Antonio Spurs and Detroit Red Wings have been habitually good in their respective sports for many, many years. So salespeople probably don't have as much of a challenge selling tickets to those games, whereas the Detroit Pistons in the NBA have been not so great the last 5-6 years, and then the Arizona Coyotes over the last 10 years have habitually experienced problems with getting fans in the seats. So at that point, in these situations, salespeople and marketers might have some challenges with bringing people into the games if the teams are not performing well. And that's where there's certain attributes of the organization or the brand that need to be highlighted. And the brand is sort of what your organization is famous for. What do they stand for? And so understanding what to sell and what not to sell will help to make a salesperson more successful. So, for example, selling people in the organization is a strategy that a salesperson can do. So instead of selling the team itself, if the team is not successful, you could sell a particular player or coach. The New Orleans Saints have not been very successful on the field over the last couple of years, but of course, the Saints have come off a half a decade or so of being quite competitive, and also they've won an NFL championship. So salespeople can reach back to that success and can highlight their star player Drew Brees or their star coach Sean Payton as a way to sell people on the team, but specifically sell them on the on players or coaches within an organization. But we can also sell someone in terms of history and tradition. And again, this sort of gets to what are the needs of the consumer that you're trying to sell tickets or inventory to. So it could be that an organization has a rich history of success or some sort of colorful history of characters or statistics or some great games being played in that stadium. So we're the all-time winningest team in whatever league you're playing, or we have had some of the all-time greats played on this team. So even if the team is not competitive on the field right now, a skilled salesperson can nuancedly change the message so that there are high selling points to attract a potential sale of inventory. In addition to history, there's also tailgating. We've got the best tailgating in the SEC, or we have the most school spirit, or our band is the best band in the land, or we have the best sort of fans out there, best fight song. So all of these different elements of your client can be stratified so that there is additional methods to sell potential consumers on why they should purchase tickets to your for your organization, why your inventory is attractive. So even if the product is failing on the field, then history is able to still supplement that. When the University of Michigan football team had gone through a lull over the last 5 or so years until Jim Harbaugh arrived on the scene, and even though the team was not competitive on the field, they were not winning many games. The athletic department could still sell their historical success, and that is something that could eventually drive sales. So, what do we do in terms of selling pride and popularity? Well, we could try to capitalize on the popularity by focusing on region or focusing on the state. We could try to have tie-ins to the university if we're trying to sell tickets to a college sport. We could try to show again that we have the best statistics. We've competed the best. Which sport brand highlights or attributes do we sell other than people, tradition, pride, or popularity? Well, I'm glad you asked that. In addition to these things like people, history, pride, and popularity, salespeople are hamstringed only by their level of creativity. So again, I don't mean to keep going back to the Coyotes, but they've gone through the last 5, 6 years of being not very competitive on the ice and not being able to fill their stands, not having a lot of accolades to hang their hat on. They've only been in Arizona for about 20 years and been in Glendale for about 10 of those years, which is not in Phoenix. So it's tough to connect with the major consuming population where your inventory would be purchased, which is Phoenix, and instead you could have a strategy by the salespeople to target the fact that they are giving back to the community and socially conscious. So the Coyotes have a foundation here. Maybe it would be advantageous for the salespeople try to concentrate on that. On top of that, you could also sell the sport product itself. So you could, in product-based selling, we're trying to emphasize the benefits and features. So you could focus on the quality of the product or its reputation. Or you could also focus on the consumer. So instead of trying to say why this is a high quality product and you should purchase it, now we're going to try to focus on the needs of the consumer. And this is, again, where doing some research and trying to be astute can be helpful in catering to the needs of your consumer. As the text says, we need to understand why this product or why our inventory is going to meet the needs of the consumer. And so by helping them find a solution to whatever problem they have, that will help you sell more of your inventory. In terms of selling, or I'm sorry, in terms of relationship building, we want to make sure that we are learning about our client. So again, some key skills for salespeople, regardless of what approach you use, are going to be understanding who your client is and what their needs are. Why are they interested in your organization? The next is communication. You want to make sure that when you're making a sales pitch, you also have a genuine conversation and are able to understand their needs through communication and asking open-ended questions. Things that types of questions you should be asking are the how, when, where, and why, so you can, again, engage the prospect quickly and understand their needs. Probably the most important point on this list is being an active listener. A good salesperson and a good leader listens the majority of the time, because by listening, you can ascertain your potential client's needs or what their problem is and how you can solve their problem. And this is also helpful in terms of overcoming objections, because once you've gotten to the point where you are actually have manifested the understanding of what your potential sale wants or needs, you can answer these objections, which usually come in the form of a question. And once you're able to show how your inventory that you're selling meets their needs and what the benefits are, you can actually create that compromise and you can close that deal. And you want to make sure that you're asking them what you want so that you can be effective. Second, what methodologies do sport managers and sales use to sell their inventory? So we've already established what you're selling. Now we need to establish the different methods. And the textbook gives us several methods that I want to highlight. The first one is database marketing. So that one is where an organization creates a large database that includes customer demographics as well as psychographics to help us generate sales. And this database is usually created by by sending emails out to your potential clients or capturing their information, their identifying information in different ways, so that you can fill your database up with this demographic and psychographic information to understand who your consuming public is. And this is then, once you have this database, you can use it to send direct mailings out to customers or have salespeople engage in telemarketing. So, of course, direct mailing has its benefits and drawbacks. It's usually a cheaper way to send out mass marketing and sales materials, but people can easily ignore them. It's a one-way communication. you don't really understand the needs of your population, and they need to take the initiative to contact you either through usually a 1-800 number or a website to take that next step. Telemarketing is a bit more targeted, but again, it's not face to face, and it's a bit more expensive because it involves a human being that you've employed to make these phone calls. The last one is personal selling, which is the most expensive, but it's also the most dynamic because in addition to the database, you are able to use that database to gain entry to people who might be interested in a face-to-face meeting, whether it's at their place of work or at the stadium, to engage in personal selling. And of course, this is a very effective method when you're dealing with high-priced inventory like sponsorships or suites. And oftentimes, organizations open up the facilities and let people who they're targeting tour the facility to help entice them into buying into that greater investment. But again, it's about being an effective listener, and it's about making sure that the salesperson makes the potential client makes them feel that their needs are being met. In terms of methods, we also have this escalator concept, which is part of upselling. And this is where organizations try to move the consumer from purchasing one game tickets to then things like multi-ticket plans or then even season ticket packages. You're trying to move them into being a more loyal consumer of your inventory. This also could be accomplished through the corporate side if you're talking about moving from just individual advertising deals where maybe some signage is purchased by a corporate or corporate business, but then sponsorship sales would be more comprehensive. So you're trying to move them from just one component to a sponsorship agreement, which has multiple components and is comprehensive. And you're trying to increase that company's involvement and investment in your organization. So don't just be satisfied by renewing a customer at their current level. You want to try to get them up that escalator. And sort of part of that escalator marketing is relationship marketing because you're trying to upsell them on the benefits of your organization in consuming your inventory. So you need to identify those benefits to your potential client or consumer, and they need to be communicated and publicized so that the consumer feels as though the benefits are worth their value. This can be done in sort of in connection with promotions and public relations, so that people's perceptions continue to increase of the product, or that people's perceptions of the product continue to increase. We also, as part of relationship marketing, the text also talks about edu-selling. So edu-selling is this form of selling that combines understanding the needs of your client through a needs assessment and relationship building, but then also educating your consumer or the client as to the benefits and how it meets their needs. So one example here is Ritz crackers here that you see on the back of the product here. In addition to showing the product, they've got an informational way to create a tasty meal by using their product. So this would be an example of edu-selling. Then we've got a few more examples and methods. We've got aftermarketing, which is the process of retaining customers, and you're trying to continue their satisfaction so that they continue to want to consume your product. One component of your after-selling here is sales promotions. So promotions are broadly defined as a broad range of short-term activities that are designed to stimulate the consumer's demand, immediate demand of that product. So these efforts are also intended to boost the consumer's awareness of your brand, and then also by virtue of boosting awareness, increasing sales and different types of ancillary elements that are a part of your organization. So over the last couple of years, there's been a variety of different giveaways and promotions that have been used within professional sports to try to stimulate the fan interest through after promotions. So giveaways like bobbleheads or shooting T-shirts into the stands via T-shirt cannon or a slingshot, posters, those sorts of different giveaway elements. And then promotions, fireworks are always attractive and popular, autograph sessions, discounts, etc. So these are all examples. Now, as we sort of wind down this lecture, I want to share with you some of the truisms of sales that the textbook introduces to us. So the first one is that staff need to be trained and prepared to sell either a winning or losing team. So sort of intertwined throughout this presentation on sales has been the notion that you need to be someone who can convince a potential client of the value of what you're selling, not just based on whether or not they're winning, but also what other inherent value your product or inventory presents to them for in exchange for their value, which is their money. Also, we need, as salespeople, need to understand and identify what the consumer's needs are. What are their wants and needs? So we want to be able to not focus on more than just selling a product, but trying to sell them as to how your inventory can satisfy their needs. So this really is a process of understanding the client and understanding their wants and needs so that you can create a solution to that. And then we, as salespeople, moving from just a straightforward approach on how to sell, which is sort of where sales came from, to now using different tools to sell your products or your inventory, and that's using data. So dynamic database marketing and other forms of data collection need to be used as part of effective sales. And we also need to understand that we can't just give away tickets for free anymore. The salespeople need to do something in a way to attract potential consumers, because of the adage now that if you give something away, it's perceived to be of low value. In terms of the sales process, the first aspect is creating and building that relationship. And it might be something where it takes the process of sales through cold calls or personal selling can be something where people get discouraged. Like I said before, there are some sort of stereotypes of sales or drawbacks of sales where people don't have the stomach of being told no or not getting that meeting. So building that relationship does take time. It could take several different attempts in order to get a little bit farther with someone, whether you're not speaking with the right person or that person needs to hear your pitch a couple of times. You need to be able to communicate value. Again, why is your product worth purchasing? What makes your inventory valuable? Communicating need. Or determining need. You need to, again, be able to diagnose and understand the needs of your client or your potential sale. And then once you've determined their need, you can help to craft, the narrative as to why your your inventory helps to meet that need. And this is done through assessing the situation so that you're able to understand what the proper element of your inventory would be, whether it's ticket, what type of ticket package, or what type of corporate aspect is appropriate for your client. And overcoming objections, again, perseverance, being able to be thoughtful and be able to listen well so that you can get them away from just saying no into actually getting them to hear you out and potentially say yes. And then persuading customers to act on their interest. Once you've communicated the value and communicated that you're actually are solving an issue that they might have or providing a solution to their needs, then you need to do the ask. You need to actually tell them that this is actually in their interest. So some final wisdom from Mark McCormick, who is the founder of IMG and one of the sales gurus. Find the need. So find what your potential client or sale is looking for. What are they missing? Know your product. Know all of the different elements of your inventory. Being knowledgeable and communicating that knowledge is powerful. Believe in your product, making sure that you believe in what you're saying and believe in your the power of your product, and making sure that you're seeing a good deal of volume. Most people have a very low success rate in the low single digits. So repetition helps to increase your likelihood of success. And then ask for the sale. Once you actually have gotten someone to the point where they're interested in purchasing something from your inventory, you need to do the ask. You need to make sure that you're asking them to purchase something from your inventory. Now, the text referenced selling sponsorships. And of course, sponsorships is one of the items in your inventory that people in sales can sell to the various companies. So, of course, sponsorship, as I was alluding to earlier, is the acquiring or acquisition of rights that a company receives to associate with a sport organization or their product or their good or event. And it's done so for the purposes of affiliation or marketing or other reasons. And this has really become big business, as your textbook alluded to. This requires, from both a organizational standpoint as well as from a sponsor standpoint, a great deal of research on the front end, understanding both entities' needs. What sorts of goals will this sponsorship affiliation or the sponsorship contract help meet? So there needs to be a lot of information on the front end, creativity on both sides to make sure that you can maximize the unique bundle of rights that are acquired by the company that's paying large sums for the right for the sponsorship. And oftentimes, for more significant sponsorship agreements, we're talking about in the millions of dollars. Most of the time, it's not just money that a organization or that a sponsorship company, a company like Home Depot is paying an organization like the National Football League or ESPN for the right to associate. Instead, it's usually some money, but also in-kind benefits, such as free product that the company actually sells. And it's done so, it's given to that entity for the right to have that preferred access. And really what we're talking about here is they're paying for value in exposure, unique opportunities that corporate entity would not have. And it's a way to differentiate themselves from their competitors and leverage that affiliation to achieve whatever unique marketing goal that is very important for the corporation. So in short, it creates value. So again, like I said, among the benefits that sponsors receive is that exclusivity. That's very important. Official designations are also important. So these sort of first two bullet points go hand in hand. That exclusivity within a specific product or service category will go usually, such as for ESPN and Home Depot, it would be the official sort of home improvement store of College Game Day. You can see even the branding in the slide, ESPN College Game Day, built by Home Depot. So it's not going to be built by Lowe's or any sort of third party. Leagues and teams offer multiple designations that are tied to the sport, and it's done so in the sponsors category or service. And these sponsorship agreements also come with rights for the corporation to utilize the sports organization's intellectual properties, such as logos, team names. Oftentimes, if there's licensees from the players' associations, use player names. And you do this all in conjunction with advertising or promoting whatever unique campaigns or unique events that the sides negotiate into the contract for the purposes of activation. There's other unique opportunities and sponsorships for corporations, such as signage throughout the venue, and also other supplemental or collateral elements, and both sides are really only limited by their lack of creativity. Of course, things like tickets and access to players and unique events are also usually part of sponsorship. And a large component of sponsorship nowadays, activation. And activation is the process of allocating financial resources to support whatever sponsorship agreement has been negotiated by both sides. And this is done as a means to promote both the professional sports team or league as well as the corporation. And it could be cross promotion where both both entities in this contract are promoting each other through the use of intellectual property and other elements. And as the textbook says, for activation, the rule of thumb here is that it should be a 3-to-1 sort of benefit, that $1 spent in rights fees is going to be supported by $3 in advertising and promotion. And again, from a larger standpoint, you're hoping that the amount of money that the organization, the corporate entity that's spending on the sponsorship as well as the activation is going to be a good return in its investment. So, for example here, we've got a couple of great examples here of sponsorship and activation. The textbook mentions Bridgestone in the National Hockey League. For about, I'd say, 6 or so years, the National Hockey League has been working with Bridgestone, which is a tire company for primarily automobiles. And Bridgestone was signed on as the presenting sponsor of the NHL's Winter Classic, which is the signature outdoor game that is really the marquee event for the NHL. And in addition to the Bridgestone, the corporation, being the presenting partner or having that presenting right as its sponsorship agreement, there's also other collateral elements, whether it's signage or it's activation opportunities on site of the Winter Classic. You look on the lower right hand side, you see one activation element, and on the left another activation element. You see at the bottom left there's online advertising signage, and there's also Bridgestone is the official tire of the NHL. And then also we have Bridgestone launching an integrated activation campaign through its marketing. So here's a great example of marketing.
So this performance puck is another way Bridgestone's bringing its tire technologies to the world of sports.
Right, the puck. The multi-cell compound that allows our Blizzak tires to bite through, pack snow and ice makes perfect sense on winter roads. But here, that's NHL defenseman Drew Doughty helping us test it out. As you can see, we're still trying to wrap our heads around it.
Bridgestone, our passion for performance knows no bounds.
So with that advertisement, Bridgestone not only tied in with their sponsorship with the NHL with the cold ice theme and having Drew Doughty, who's a professional hockey player, uh, trying to move the puck via slap shot, but the ad also provided us, the consumer or the target, with helpful information that educates us about the properties of their tires, that they help grip the road, and so they had that image of the tire stopping on ice, but and also the puck not moving. So that's a great way to help activate their sponsorship through different elements here, and then educate us as the consumer. Some other examples in sport are Nissan and its sponsorship with the NCAA, as well as ESPN, and also the Heisman Trophy that's handed out annually to college football's best player. And it's developed this very popular Heisman House campaign. You see on the left, there's one simple ad that's showing the affiliation of Nissan and the Heisman, and then on the right, there's some activation, print activation that's usually in magazines showing one of Nissan's products, and then college football and some of its functionality. So then we also have another great example of of uh, of of a of a corporation doing some great cross promotion with the Heisman, as well as its products. And bear, I know this commercial is a little much, but this actually works in educating the consumer about their vehicle, and it's makes fun of Tim Tebow. So I mean, it's a win-win.
Let's ride around town in my gator car. Getting on down to some gator core. In my armada, all gator fans are looking for more. They want more. Gator core, never a bore, never a snore. Dance all night, gonna make you sore. Who's that rapping at my door? Is that Lenore? Never more. Easy, baby, I'm a gator core. Through and through, my heart beats strong with that orange and blue. My Nissan Armada is gator green. I'm living the dream.
Oh, he's so cute. I bet he's dreaming of puppies.
All right. So again, what did that advertisement tell us? It both promoted Heisman and promoted Nissan, and it promoted college football and the association, the unique association between the companies, the entities Heisman and Nissan. But it also was going to get airtime during college football games being broadcast on ESPN, because ESPN also has a sponsorship deal with Nissan. So again, all kinds of cross promotion. And if you listen to the lyrics of the amazing country song, the lyrics were actually telling you some of the qualities of the vehicle, the Nissan Armada. You saw a great deal of shots of the interior and the functionalities. So there's actually some benefits. But then not all examples are great in terms of activation and sponsorship. A couple of years ago, the University of Michigan Athletic Department, by virtue of their longstanding sponsorship agreement with CocaCola as the official soft drink of Michigan Athletics, they launched a very short-lived and ill-fated giveaway promotion where, as a way for Michigan to continue its sellout streak of over 250 games consecutively, Michigan needed to move some inventory, these tickets. And so someone came up with the idea of buy 2 Coca-Colas and get 2 tickets to the Michigan-Minnesota game. And that led to hilarious results. And as an alum of Michigan, I have mixed feelings here, but here's some of the fallout.
Buy a Coke for Brady Hoke because he should endorse the company that is practically giving away Michigan tickets. Check this out. You can get 2 free tickets to the Big House to watch Michigan and Minnesota go at it if you buy any 2 CocaCola products. And this tweet says it all. That's $150 face value for $3. Kevin, would you spend $3 to go watch a Michigan game at this point?
I would not. I wouldn't spend $3 on a can of Coke either.
No.
I'm a Pepsi guy. Shit.
I see that. Avid Pepsi drinker. And so the Twitterverse has reacted in the most creative of ways, starting with this. Michigan fans share a Coke with David Brandon. Oh, there it is, who, of course, is the AD there in Ann Arbor. And then there's this. Yeah, you need to put something else in that Coke to get me to watch that Michigan team. Barrett, I could not agree more with you. But then Sean has the question of the day with this. If you purchase a 2-liter of Coke, do you get to call the plays for Michigan during the first half on Saturday? Wouldn't that be nice? And Law on the Draw nailed it with this. Looks like the Michigan Coke ticket promotion worked. Even Nick Saban couldn't resist. What can I say?
That's
It's our
the
bye
best.
week.
That's the best.
That is the best one of all. Now, apparently, the promotion was available at the university's U-Go's convenience store in Ann Arbor, which makes me feel a little bit better. Maybe students was their target audience for this promotion, but I mean, come on, seriously with this?
Students are always big buyers of Coke.
Well, and they don't have a lot of money. That's where I was going with this. You know, $3, 2 tickets, good exchange. The promo has since been pulled as of last night. So I'm sorry, folks, if you did not act quickly, you unfortunately missed out.
So there's a couple of things that are damaging regarding this promotion. So remember back to what we were talking about earlier in this lecture, talking about your brand as an organization. And the brand is sort of the identity that the organization has crafted for itself and what the consumer associates with their company or their product or their service. So here, Michigan has long crafted its brand as being sort of college athletics royalty, being full of tradition, winning a high quality brand. But when this promotion came out, and now these tickets that have a face value each of $75 are being sold for $3 total, that can have some negative consequences on the value, the brand value of Michigan football. And this could lead to severe ramifications of people, what they think about Michigan as a brand, due to how it activated this sponsorship agreement with Coke, although it was done in limited capacity in one location. So this kind of brings up the question of what is more important to at the athletic department, keeping the streak alive of consecutive sellouts, or making sure that the brand is not injured by some sort of association that does not fit with the brand that Michigan's worked so hard to craft, such as lack of value or their tickets not being worth two Cokes. So navigating the perils of activation as a way to help promote your sponsorship can be difficult at times. So again, it takes creativity, but also having common sense when working with your partners, as you sell the inventory that you have been allotted as a salesperson. So we talked we talked about a lot of things today. We talked about the fundamentals of sales, different types of inventory, different ways to approach sales, and then sponsorships as part of the inventory, and then the activation. So I hope this was a valuable chapter for you, couple of chapters. And as always, I'm here to field your questions. Thanks, and take care, everybody.